And so, Krys, one of the things that I've been telling folks that has me excited about talking to you is this concept of emotional regulation. Can you tell us what that is, and especially what that is for a chief of staff?
Right. So emotional, so we most often hear about or see emotional dysregulation, right? And that can look like poor decision making under stress. That can look like saying things you wish you hadn't said. That can look like rushing to judgment, rushing to make a decision because we feel pressure or we feel anxious. And so emotional regulation is the ability to manage and control your emotions. And it doesn't mean that you don't, it means that you do, in fact, but you actually feel equipped and know how to navigate those. You know how to ask for space to process your feelings or to ask for time to think or how to structure your day so that it's the least stressful on you, as well as how to have these communications and conversations that no doubt will have some conflict or some rubs. Excuse me, sorry for that. But that you're able to navigate that. And that's what emotional regulation kind of looks like. And for a chief of staff role, and we'll dig into that, what does that look like in your day-to-day role?
Yeah, yeah, thank you. And when you and I had first talked and you had brought this up, like it seems like we're all thinking about it, but why is it so critical? Like, why is it so essential for leaders today?
Mm. Right. So, um, emotional regulation is a non-technical skill. And non-technical skills make up 85% of job success, of your job success and the people that are probably relying on you or that you are managing or that you are helping to take care of professionally, right? So it is
Mm-hmm.
essential that we find our emotional regulation as well as a slew of other non-technical skills. But emotional regulation seems to be the one that is the most overlooked, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
We ask or polled who here has had any training on emotional regulation. We get some training on EQ, right? But not
Right.
necessarily the emotional regulation aspect of it. The other part is well being and mental health is considered a public health crisis. We know impacts work. Those are some of the number one reasons that people separate from their company. And we know that some of us in our roles have to let people go and have those difficult conversations, or we also oversee HR or HR activities. And so that's one of the things that we know is that people don't always leave jobs because they're not technically skilled. It has to do with like this, how we navigate the workplace and our feelings.
Mm.
And so there isn't a lot of formal training around that we can go and seek out. But I've got some tips to how to find that.
Nice, nice. And again, it feels like there's tons of resources, like you said, for technical training. And it almost feels like the expectation is we already know how to practice EQ. So it should be something that's inherent in us. And what I'm hearing from you is no, we might have some of those skills, but just like any other skill, whether it's a hard or soft skill, we need
Mhm.
to work on that. For chief of staffs, we know that we're always in these really high pressure types of situations. What are some of your tips? You said you were going to talk about that. What are some of your tips or practices that can help leaders just effectively respond instead of just reacting?
Right. Yeah. Well, number one is the education and awareness piece, like we're having this conversation. Number one, even know that it's a thing, that there is an area or skill that you could be harnessing, working on, that if you master, other people will notice and see you as this very level-headed professional, this expert who seems to never lose their cool, someone who's incredibly even and effective. So just being aware that number one, this even exists. So now you can go and Google emotional regulation and you
Mhm.
all of these resources for that. That's kind of one of the problems that is that there are resources everywhere and it's not very formal, but at least pick one and I'll talk about a few, but at least pick one and
Right.
get started on that, something that resonates with you. So once you are at least aware and then you start to do a little education on it, reading up on it, reading some books, listen to some podcasts, talk to other chiefs of staff who are doing this work as well. The next thing is awareness of yourself.
Hmm.
Got to know how you feel. You've got to be able to read your own feelings before you can foretell the feelings of others, which is what we have to do with our principal. You got to notice when they're stressed. You got to notice when they're spread too thin. You've got to notice when they're overwhelmed because you're expected to also help manage that. So you got to be good at being self-aware. Um, and knowing when you are really about to be compromised and then learning to avoid that. That's the final phase of that, is learning how to avoid some of those stressors and hardships, and learning then to navigate them. Some of the things that I use: number one, everybody uses their calendar and their schedule. Be looking at that and seeing, like, how stressed are we? Some
Hmm.
about biology and just the way that we function and that we're set up is that we tend to do better when it is earlier in our workday, and whatever time that is for you, you
Wow.
better. It has to do with this thing called thin slicing. It's a whole neuro thing, but basically we tend to take in so much information and we get decision fatigue also, and so
Hmm.
slice and dice information as it comes in to make it make the most sense. And
Gotcha.
today we get more and more exhausted and tired and we make poor decisions, right? So looking at your schedule and managing it that way. I also journal. And I
Mm.
like, this thing that folks are doing, and you think, well, how do you operationalize that? I operationalize my journaling. So I journal, I plug in at GPT, and I have some prompts, and I it helps me figure out, what does my pattern look like? How am I ebbing and flowing? Where am I at in my emotional journey right now? And so if I'm having a rough week or a tough week or a tough day, I know to start with my tactics.
Hmm.
Meetings if I need to, not being as vocal in meetings if I need to, rearranging some things, all of
Yeah.
taking some time away. Those things, that's kind of how I work it, all the way from education and awareness to skills to be able to manage.
Wow. That so I never thought about using AI for journaling because I journal, I time block my calendar, and then I simply just step away from my desk sometimes. And I know that not everybody has that privilege to be able to do that. But I'm at a place in my career where I actually can do that, and I take it very seriously. Some of the wonderful people on this call, I have been chatting with them for a while, and as you know, we recently adopted a little girl, 4 months old, the light of my life. And I tell everybody I have a new boss. And when my new boss is speaking to me, I step away from the desk because that is my new normal, which I love. But because I have tried so hard in the past to make sure that I establish some boundaries, being able to step into that new chapter of my life has been something that I've been able to do a little bit smoothly. It's still, I mean, newborns, for everybody that's got kids, newborns, woof. But setting up, um, those time blocks, or like you were saying, learning how to read yourself. So, I'm getting close to 100. I got to do something. I can't take this last meeting because if I take it, I joke with my team. I'm like, if you catch me right after Christmas, I'm approving everything.
Right, right.
Everything's going to get approved. I'm in a good mood, so send it to me. But and even though we joke about that, but it's still along the same lines of understanding yourself and putting those practices in place. And you named a few of those practices. What are other things that we should consider putting in place?
Right. And congratulations also, Anne Marie. That's so fantastic. And that is your new boss. I have six bosses other than my boss, right? I'm a parent, and we have parents and caregivers on here. No matter where you are in that journey or season of being a caregiver, it is something that does impact how we work. Before COVID, we used to think that we had a work persona and a home persona, and we very quickly found out you do not, right? You bring those feelings and emotions with you to work. So it is incredibly important, if you are a human being that exists amongst other human beings, and we all do, that you learn how to navigate that when you're going to bring some.
Mhm.
And so the other things that I do, I'm glad that you journal. By the way, start journaling either electronically or scan your journal entries, because it can change it over to text, which you can then enter into Chat GPT and get you some good prompts
Woo.
and kind of figure out where you are with that. So
Um,
things I use, and I like to show people how to find things as well. is to actually go into Google, and you can go there right now and type in mental health first aid. That's like the very first starting place, because when you think about emotional regulation, you can almost think about it like CPR. Um, Most heart incidents, it's something like 80 something percent also of heart incidents do not occur in a hospital. So that's why CPR started back in the 60s, because it's mostly lay people, right? You're just walking down the street, you're just in the mall, and this incident happens. And if you've ever taken CPR, you know that you are equipped to handle that situation until professionals arrive, right?
Right.
And so I like to think of mental health first aid as that kind of CPR for the feelings. And so what we know is that, like, when you have some good emotional regulation tactics or equipping, that you can kind of hold it together until the professionals arrive. Because I also
Mhm.
promote professionals, be seeing a professional. Every good therapist has a good therapist. Every good chief of staff kind of acts as a therapist. So we should also have a or a career advisor or a coach or something like that to help us along. The other thing that I use besides the journaling, and I am mental health first aid certified, is I got a certificate from Indiana University, where I used to work at the School of Medicine, and I worked with this group, and they had numerous 14, 15 faculty come together and put together something that they call the trauma informed approach. So if you Google Indiana University trauma informed certificate, that will pop up. That is free. It is free 99. So that is a certificate. You do it online. It's completely asynchronous. It takes a couple of hours. You can spread it out over the week. I found it to be clutch in me feeling,
Wow.
no matter what goes on, I feel equipped to hold it
Mhm.
together until I find the next thing to actually do to address the issue, to solve the problem. Um,
Gotcha.
and that created a lot of confidence. And people know me for that. Anything happens, I feel very equipped and confident, like, yeah, I can figure out what to do from here. So those are a couple of the things that I use. So hopefully y'all are able to Google and find that.